What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to look at two classic iconic watches that came up on my list when I was first looking at timepieces that I wanted to collect. The one on the right, the Rolex, isn't my own personal one, but I was able to get it, and I thought it would be nice to use for a review, since I know when I started looking, a lot of the questions that I had asked weren't really answered. So a few things first come into mind, especially for a second hand or a secondary market watches. The first thing is going to be price. They're going to need to be serviced if they're older than 4 or 5 years. Now, the cost on those can range, but for an Omega, that can cost you roughly around $700, or on the Rolex, $600 to $1,000. So keep that in mind if you're going to get a used Rolex. Make sure that it's been serviced before you buy it, or at least serviced recently, because then that does add to the cost, and when you buy something this expensive, you're going to want to take care of it. You don't want it to get beat up on the inside and then have a bunch of replacement parts later on. Aside from replacement, one of the things you're going to want to look at is the condition of the watches. Now, these two, you can see, are in pretty decent condition, but you can tell that the Rolex has been polished, or at least the links have been polished. The case looks relatively unharmed, and in the case of the Omega, it hasn't been touched at all. It's an original. Aside from the polishing, a few other things to note are, what style do you like? Do you like the date complication? Is this going to mean more to you than the chronograph, which is, while handy, isn't really something that most people use. And so, with that being said, some people use the chronograph and use the second hand as a marker. Now, with the Omega, it uses manual wind and no automatic feature. I like the crispness of the Omega. The inputs are very solid, and you can feel it with a solid click. Now, as mentioned, even though that this doesn't have a date function, people sometimes use the second hand as a date feature. Do I personally use this? I don't. But some people do, and it works for them. For me, if I don't want to deal with it, I just wear a watch with the date. So, you got to ask yourself which one means more to you in terms of style. I weighed these two models, and the Rolex is slightly lighter than the Omega, which was a little surprising to me, because then I felt like the Omega wears a little flatter than this particular one, than the Submariner. Now, that being said, it also depends on which one do you like. NASA certified the Omega SpeedMaster, whereas Rolex is in a lot more movies than the Omega. However, Omega is definitely in a number of movies on its own. And thirdly, you have your tags, but we'll leave those guys out of the equation for now and focus on the Omega and the Rolex. Now, aside from style, you're going to have to look at the price. And pricing is definitely very different between the two models. The Omega is going to run you anywhere from $1,900 all the way on up to $6,000. Depending if you get a new one, or you're looking at the secondary market and the quality, the condition, if it's a full set, when it's been serviced, etc. And also who you're buying from. The Rolex, on the other hand, is going to run you, the starting point's significantly higher, in the mid-3,000s all the way on up to mid-6,000s. And that's mainly dependent on the quality and condition of the watch. If it's maintained and in mint condition, it's probably going to run you around $6,000. But more than likely, good condition, maintenance, not too long ago. We'll run you about 45 to mid fives. For the Omega, in good condition, recently serviced or running, keeping good time, we'll run you about mid $2,000 to just under 3. For really good condition, good specimens like this, it'll be 3.5 on up. I got this particular one on the upper range and then had it serviced by Omega, so kind of paid a premium for it, but it's all I can afford compared to the Rolex. Alright, in conclusion, I think we've looked at these two enough, and just want to give you an idea of what the two looks like with their lume. I'll put the links on below for my other videos that review these watches in depth. I just wanted to go across some talking points and hope they help a prospective buyer of one of these watches. As I said, this is my personal watch, and then this one is on loan for now. So this is the way I leaned, but I do like the modern Rolexes better than the older ones, so that's where my vote's at. That's pretty much what I had for you guys. If you have any questions, comment below and let me know which one you prefer. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.